I would now like to introduce and invite our next speaker, who is also the first male speaker of the day. We've had women speakers since morning, so please welcome Mr. Harit Nagpal, MD and CEO at Tata Play and author of the book Adapt, in which he shares his learnings from his over 4-decade-long career where he has had to constantly adapt to new roles and situations. My colleague who read the book within a week of its release tells me that it's a must-read for anyone who is in the business. Today, as he joins us at QUORUM, he will delve deeper into the same topic during the fireside chat and share insights on why one must adapt to thrive and not just survive. He will be joined by Ira Pradhan, Director of Corporate Communications at Freshworks, who will drive the fireside chat here. Please welcome Harit and Ira.
Welcome to QUORUM, Mr. Nagpal. As you know, most of us seated here are highly talented corporate communications individuals here, and we have one common hobby. We love to read. That's one common hobby. We're all readers, and I must tell you that after reading every book, we always get this feeling that I wish I could call this author and sit across with him and talk to him about the book. Sometimes the conversations we imagine are, what were you thinking? But this is not going to go that way. I really loved your book, really enjoyed reading it. This is your first book, Adapt to Thrive, not just survive. I just can't believe it's your first book. It's got this...
It is,
yeah. It's got this very beautiful chameleon picture over there, very colorful, and you will tell us a little story about it, I'm sure. And if you had a hand in picking up this cover, but if you do, select book by looking at its cover, this is the book to read because you learn about brand management, a little bit about how to create a good workplace culture, negotiating, building relations, and in a fun style. I really like the one that says 10 disruptive business stories with 100 constructive questions. So 10 questions after every chapter. So welcome again to this, to QUORUM. We've been given only 45 minutes, so we'll dive right in. But before that, I'd like to ask you a question which we ask every out-of-towners in Bangalore. How was the traffic?
It's not any better or worse than any other place in the world. So please don't complain about a city.
Okay, so the reason I asked you is just to segue into your first chapter of this book where you talk about Sam Shamsuddin, who is going back to his hometown, Bangladesh, and he wants to set up a business. And he sees all these big edifices built in the city with all the flyovers and the modern structures, but he also notices that things haven't changed much in some ways, right? And you argue in your book that the more things change, the more they remain the same, and you cover the basics. So my question to you first is, what are you covering in this book, and what is the theme of this book?
Well, the theme and the need to write this book essentially came from the fact that I've been through 6 industries. This is my 6th industry in 39 years. And every new industry that I step into, they'd say, oh, this industry is unique. This is not like the other businesses that are there. We are so different. So don't try to. And I'd say, you are serving the same customer, the same guy who buys the cola, the candy, the car, an airplane seat, a life insurance, opens a bank account. He uses a certain set of criteria to decide which bank to open an account in, which insurance company to buy from, which cola to drink. Now, there's a criteria that he uses. How can he be a different human being for every product in terms of his behavior, his choice? Also, with every passing generation, and I've seen many X, Y, Z, whatever, gens that come in, and everybody says, oh, those were your days, these days things are different. So much so, about 15 days ago, I posted a question, an opinion poll on LinkedIn, where I simply asked, I said, business basics, and the options were, change with time, stay constant. Of the 698 respondents over 24 hours, 83% said change with time. Now, so that's the question that baffles me. How can basics change? All that changes is the environment, the circumstances, the technology around it. But the basics, the earth continues to still revolve around the sun. It is not the other way. Earth has not gone flat again. It's still spherical. Basics remain basics. They don't change, whether you're a startup or a large multinational or a kirana shop. The basics, those basics apply to you. The environment is changing, and you need to adapt to that. You need to adapt to that positively. And you asked about this chameleon. The chameleon, maybe 5 lakh years ago, was a chameleon. Its life was the same as its descendant of today's age. It goes into brown and it turns brown. It goes into green and turns green. It just adapts to the environment, saves its skin. Humans, on the contrary, use disruption or change to, to their advantage, to rise, to get better. And I think that's what we need to be looking for in every change in the environment. And we have been, because put your hand on the heart and say, is your life better than what it was a year ago, 5 years ago, or 10 years ago? And it certainly is, despite the traffic. You're at least driving in a better quality of a car than you were 10 years ago. So we look at it, we see a disruption and we adapt, and our life has got better with every passing day. The chameleon 5 lakh years ago was living the same life and will continue to. That was the point.
Thank you so much. But do you think that change is happening more often because you have you've seen so many years of, life, let's just say that. So do you think it's happening more often? We even have change communication as part of a charter these days in corporate communications.
Yes, it is. It's not only is it happening more often, the scale of the change every time it happens is larger than the previous time. So we better get used to it. And see, you didn't even have email, and then came email. You got first computers and then Lotus Notes if somebody's worked on them. I have.
Yes, we did.
And then came the Microsoft and the other Gmails of the world. Then came search engines. Then came Google search engine. And now you got artificial intelligence and generative AI and stuff like that. And each one is a bigger leap than the past. And actually is making our life so much easier with every step. People say, oh, it'll take away our jobs. Computers didn't take away our jobs. Email didn't, search engines didn't. We used to be spending 8 hours and 9 hours sitting in a library with 8 books trying to cross-reference and put together one page. We spend about 15 minutes today on Google, and I think tomorrow it'll be 15 seconds on AI with ChatGPT. So change is going to be bigger. Every next change is going to be bigger than the previous change.
Okay.
And for the better.
Thank you. That's reassuring. So all through your book, there is one theme that arises, which is disruption. Obviously, rightfully, rather, because the book is called Adapt to Thrive, Not to Survive. For instance, there is a story of Geeta and James who's in Jamaica, and they're trying to bring out better, or let's say diverse bamboo products in the market. And there is a father and son duo who's trying to run a publishing house in Italy, and they find themselves at a very difficult situation when the publishing house is about to be disrupted by online news. And you yourself ask yourself this question in the beginning, that what has kept me from being obsolete? Of course, when we have this aha moment that we know something needs to change, and we definitely believe this this change is very useful or important, we try to read books, we try to change ourselves and all that. But when it comes to a company, you can't go at it alone. You can't make the change alone. You need to take people along. So what is that process that you use as a CEO? And also you've written it in the book, but how do you take people along when you really know that this change is important?
So when we started working, people above us used to tell us, and we were supposed to follow. And times have changed. People don't listen to people anymore. Or if they do, they will listen to you for 2 days and then put in their papers on the third day. So, because there is another job available elsewhere. And even if they do, they will not do it from their heart. They will not put all their effort into it if you just tell them. So if you want to carry people, you don't need to tell them what to do. You need to give them the reason for why you're asking them to do something. Your belief behind what you want to do and why it should be done. It does two things. It aligns people towards your task, and it's the force becomes a multiplier towards the task that you're trying to achieve. And if you've made a mistake, and I can bet you, if you're a very, very wise man, you'll still be making 5 wrong decisions out of 10. That's the average of a very wise person. So at least if you share the belief why you trying to do something with people around you at any level, across disciplines, you're likely to get a feedback saying, are you sure? Should we be doing this? And you would have corrected yourself before making a blunder. And so that's how you carry people along.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Another recurring theme I notice in your book is, and I love this the most about the book, it's that conversations that you have throughout the book. None of this is written like a business book. It's more like a conversation happening between a father and a son, a mother and a daughter, a husband and wife, a boss and a reportee, and they are very important relations. They're very delicate, and when we want to make a change, even in the household, we always are worried, how do I put this across without burning bridges, without having my spouse just, take off and leave the house, sort of a thing. So there are lots of stories like this in your, in your conversations that come out in this book. But a few tips for all of us here, just a sneak peek into expert negotiation skills, in terms of how we can get it our way, but without hurting the feelings or, let's just say, burning bridges.
Yeah, there are conversations. I also realized after the book was out that I'd put in many conversations rather than paragraphs in the book. I wasn't aware while writing that I was putting in so many conversations in the book. In fact, a friend of mine, it's been out for the last 10, 12 days, and at least 2 of my friends have said that you should be a screenplay writer and not a writer of books.
Agree.
But I purposely put them in there because and I mentioned that in the introduction, that when I was young, like most youngsters, I did not like to drink milk. I did not like the taste of it. My mother wanted me to drink the milk because of calcium or whatever it's supposed to provide to the body. So what she would do is, in summers, we lived in Delhi that time, and in summers she would put some ruh afza in it, and in winters she'd put some chocolate in it in hot milk, and my mouth would open for the ruh afza or the chocolate, and in the process milk would go in and some calcium would settle in the body. That's, thank God, that's why the bones are still intact. Calcium of knowledge or learnings is quite similar. If you start putting a 2x2 matrix in everything, try to explain a subject or put a flow diagram and say from here to here, people don't listen. There are enough preachers in this world. But if you use the chocolate of a story or a dialogue and in that embed some learning, people will read it for the story, for the screenplay, and the calcium settles somewhere. And that's why I use those. Coming to negotiation, see, every time you go in for a negotiation, your purpose is to win. And if you switch that to win-win, the negotiation will be better and the relationship will be longer lasting. And that's been my experience. I walked into, I do a lot of negotiation for large-scale negotiations also, large prices, value, and for which are contracts which go on for 10, 15, and 20 years in multi-crore kind of scenarios. You walk in, you want to obviously get the best out of it, but you also want the relationship to be maintained. So you first need to understand where that person is coming from. What's his background? What does he need to survive in that situation? Not necessarily business, to survive in that situation. And what is it that you need? And put the cards on the table. Trust me, keeping your last card close to the chest in a negotiation never helped nobody. If you come out with your cards out on the table, you may feel that you've given away your secrets. No, you've not. You've actually earned empathy of the other guy, and he cannot be going against your card, your situation, your whatever. And if you've been able to get him to speak about his weaknesses or his dependence on this particular contract, deal, relationship, whatever it is, then you will also not make a wrong decision, or you will also not be forcing or wasting time to get something that he can't deliver. And very often conversations break down, negotiations don't happen, contracts don't happen, relationships don't get built because you don't know where the other person's coming from and he doesn't know where you're coming from and what's your last and what is his last, as we say in Bombay. And it works. So negotiation is not a win game for you. You can't just enter and say, I will win this and come out. We will win this and come out. And it works. I mean, I'll tell you, I mean, we do 3-year deals with large broadcasters, and I will not name the people. There is one broadcaster where always it takes about 4 months for a 3-year deal to not happen. And there's another one where we walk in, he pours his first drink. By the time the 3/4 of that drink is over, we have a deal. And we have the next 2 drinks to celebrate. And every 3 years, this process is repeated. 4th time, I've just finished it.
But it's not because the person is drunk and he regrets.
I'm saying I couldn't have been drunk on 3/4 of a 30 ml. So, you know, so the deal is done and 3/4 of the first drink is over. Because I've said where I'm coming from and he's told me where he's coming from, and now it's become a habit.
Absolutely. Thanks for that, but I also feel like the conversations are so good in this book that I'm going to use some of them verbatim. But I want to also understand, did you experience some of these things that you've written? You know, I mean, it's so real.
Most of them are things I've actually seen. 3 of the 10 stories are verbatim dialogue and situation included my own stories. I'll leave it to you to guess which those 3 are. The others I've seen. I've purposely masqueraded these stories in 10 different countries and 10 different industries. Industries different from the industries that I've worked in, and countries different from the country. Not one of them is based in India. And that was the best part of writing the book, because if I'm going to write about the fintech industry or the air conditioner industry or the banking industry or the insurance industry, I bloody well know about what that industry is all about, what are the basics of that. So researching that was fun for me. If I'm basing the plot in a Ghana or a New Zealand or a, you know, you name whatever, Pakistan or a Bangladesh or a UK, then I better know what are the most common names there, how do people address each other, what do they eat, what are the roads, what are the mode of transport, and what are the habits. Researching that was fun. So yeah, they're all stories which I've either experienced or I've seen other people go through, but they've just been masqueraded.
It's really, really lovely stories. I want to point out to one chapter that I read. It's about the newly appointed CEO, Nupur, who turns the company around. But
Noor in Malaysia, yeah.
Yes, sorry. So, you know, there is this small quote from there which says, Amir is the only one playing chess while everyone is playing Ludo.
You know, 5 of my friends have pointed that sentence out to me, so it must have hit well.
Yes, it is.
Amir is the only guy in the room who's playing chess while everybody else is playing Ludo. I'm sure you felt that in your life somewhere with somebody.
Yes, all the time. I mean, this is office politics. So I absolutely love the story because was it Noor or I thought it was Nupur?
Noor.
Yeah. So the CEO Noor, she turns the company around by not just listening to what's happening around, by adapting to the changes, but also bringing agility in the team as well as opportunities in times of COVID, because she's trying to sell air conditioning when everybody's staying at home. And over there, she does something different, which most of the company doesn't agree with. She, as the CEO of the company, replies to customer complaints. So my question to you is, have you replied to customer complaints as a CEO on social media? And secondly, is there a formula, quick tips on thinking strategically?
So let me be honest, I said 3 of the stories are mine. Noor is me.
Okay.
And it took me exactly 3 hours of punching on the laptop to write this story because it just came like verbatim. This is what I've lived the last 13 years in this company. And this is exactly the story of our customer operations. The way we turned around this company from being a number 4 in a 6-player market, hurtling towards being number 5 to become a undisputed leader in the industry, just basis what she does there. Yeah, this question about listening to social media complaints is a real question, which is raised and answered in this story. You know, I do that often. Those of you maybe who've followed. If somebody raises a complaint on social media and tags me in it, obviously there are alerts which come onto your watch that somebody's tagged you in a LinkedIn story or a Twitter story or whatever. And he normally gets a response in about 15-20 seconds, which says, if he's not given his subscriber ID, how the hell am I supposed to find you? So the first question I ask is, your subscriber ID, please. Believe me, 9 out of 10 don't respond, which means they're not customers, they're rabble rousers. And then the one who responds, I don't do anything. I just press my thumb on it, it copies. I copy it onto an email. There's a group sitting in Bangalore. I just mail it to them, and after that, in about 10 minutes' time, that person gets a call. In about 20 minutes' time, his problem is solved. And that's mentioned there in the story where it says that the people who, and when I started doing that, people told me these are rabble rousers. They complain about everything. And I said, I know they're rabble rousers because they complain about when their toothpaste doesn't come out in the morning, to when their AC doesn't respond to the remote because the battery was not changed, or their TV doesn't work because maybe they've not recharged their account, or maybe there's a technical fault. There's a telephone number you have, call that. Why are you announcing to the whole world? But there are people who do that. Now, these are the people who never ever get a response from the person they are addressing. Suddenly, this person who's raised about 20 complaints from toothpaste to AC to their train to airline to whatever, gets a response on Twitter or wherever it is in 30 seconds flat, and gets somebody calling that person in about 8 to 10 minutes, and the problem is resolved in 20 minutes. This same person, instead of becoming a detractor, becomes your promoter. Now, there are not too many, they say, how do you find the time? And I say, if you prioritize something in your life, you will find the time. If you don't prioritize it, you will never find the time for it. You just need to. And how long does it take? Even if there are, on a base of 20 million, trust me, I don't have more than 3 or 2 a day. Sometimes it's about 5 a week. 5 times pressing my thumb on the complaint, copy, paste on a mail, and mail it. It's a 5 or 7 second exercise. I certainly can do that 5 times or 7 times a week. But it's got us such a huge fan following on social media that now when somebody writes something about us negative, there are 5 people from the side who will write under that saying, don't worry, help should be on your way. There are people who suggested solutions under these social media posts from outside. And that's what is done to us. So don't be shy and don't label people as, I mean, I remember I used to work briefly in retail and people used to say, I mean, sales associates, ये तो TP customer है. TP meant time pass. When a customer walks into a store, salespeople can actually figure out from your face whether you just come to browse or to buy. So when you go into, if you got a reputation, trust me, they will be calling you a TP customer, a time pass customer. And the thing was, here is a TP customer, how can you convert him to a buying customer? That's exactly what we've done here.
This social media thing has been quite a nightmare for some of us, I mean, of course, but I understand, but you did mention that it has benefited you a lot, right? It has put a lot of positivity about the brand, you being out there. So that's why I said in the beginning that this is essential reading for everybody in this room, but also please buy a copy for your CEO. Probably that will also help you in having your conversations with your bosses. So here I read in one of the news papers, one of the headlines was, life is all jingalala for Harit Nagpal. So I guess they were talking about the thriving, you know, career that you've had. So you mentioned in your intro that you have 4 decades of experience, 40 years. That is quite a long career. But and we see you still have fresh perspectives to share with us. And you worked in various companies like Lakme, Vodafone, and now the CEO of Tata Play. I wanted to ask you before we move on to questions about your writing style. You know, how are you using AI in your day-to-day life as a CEO, first of all, and did you use any help in writing, help from AI in writing your book?
I didn't use AI in this, but I sure used Google, like I said. I needed to know about the industries and the geographies where I set these stories. So know more about it. And it was so easy, it was so interesting. Sometimes when I would sit down, when I decided the plot, and then I was thinking, okay, which industry and which country to place this in. There are times when I was looking for Ghana or something about Pakistan or something about Jamaica, and I would spend about 2 or 3 hours just searching interesting information about these countries or these industries. So I at best use Google. I did not use any artificial intelligence. I can give you one example of a radio jockey was interviewing me in Delhi 5 days ago. And he narrated after the interview, he said, till 2 hours before this interview, I was stuck with my CEO in an AOP exercise and I had no time to read your book and I couldn't have interviewed you without having read the book. So I did something smart for the first time and I said, what was that? He said, look, I took a Kindle version of your book, copied that and put it in ChatGPT, the higher version, the subscribed version, and he just gave a command, make bullet points. And each story was 10 bullet points of 8 or 10 words each. I read them and I said I can do the reverse also. So next time if I'm writing a book, all I will do is write 10 bullet points and it will give me a story. That's if this is possible, then that should also be possible. So maybe next time I'll use something like that and then edit it.
But do you use AI anyway in your day-to-day life?
In a big way, in a very, very big way, especially at work. We are trying to adopt as much as possible. So as things stand today, there's a very thin line between automation and AI. We've been doing automation for a long time. A lot of automation is being masqueraded as AI today. AI is something much higher than just plain simple basic automation. So we are trying to move ourselves from automation to AI as we speak just now. In fact, I'm in the middle of conversations with, again, a disruption is happening. How do you adapt to it? So instead of homegrown people trying to do what they do best, we're saying, okay, is there somebody sitting in the US who's been in the consulting environment, has spent last 10 years trying to do some transformation in some industries which is based on data and analytics? Can we just import him here on a 2-year assignment on a contract and he works with us, helping us around so that we can catapult ourselves 5 years ahead. So when the industry is ready, we are at par with it rather than trying to struggle at that point in time. So when the tsunami hits, at least you are prepared. So that's the extent that we're working on today.
Actually, those are real good tips. We are hoping we can do that with our legal documents that we have to read.
Everything is automated, by the way. All legal documents, there is no paper legal document anymore.
Style of writing. You have chosen a very conversational style. I put some notes over here, like your book takes us from Milan to Bangladesh, from Jamaica to Malaysia, and then there's a very sci-fi-esque story, which I love very much. It's called Setting Up Shop in Jupiter Moon Europa. And it kind of gives you that Black Mirror kind of feeling when you're reading, oh, what's going to happen next? How are we getting what's the word that you teleported to the new moon and then set up a shop there? And lots of things to read there also on the movie industry, because you cover the Telugu movie industry there. But I really like that kind of a story writing. It took me so much time to get to reading non-fiction, first of all. So this book I read in 3 hours tops, and it's so easy and so many strategic points at the end of it. I wanted to ask you, first of all, we all are, as I said, talented storytellers here, and we know we have a book in us, and we want to bring it out someday. So a few tips on writing books, the lessons that you have learned. It's quite an elaborate answer for you probably, but also why did you choose this style of writing?
I've already answered that piece. This was ruafza or chocolate for putting my calcium into your bodies. So that was the only reason. That's why I chose this style. When you're talking about that Europa thing, that also happened very accidentally. See the process I did was, you'll notice that I tell a story, and at the end of that there are 10 questions, which could be, if you answer in a yes or a no, and you're not allowed to answer with words in that. You have to say yes or no. Either you're doing it or you're not doing it. Because the moment you say yes, I'm doing it, but, or no, I'm not doing it, but, then you are trying to justify why you're not doing it. There's no justification. Either you're doing it or not doing it. And then that becomes your compendium of, are you really choosing your segments wisely, or your distribution, or your people, or your innovation, or your culture, or etc., etc. So I would first write the 10 questions on the chapter. That's the bone of the preach that I wanted to put in. And then the story would be the flesh around it. So that was the writing style, really. So having written those 10 questions, over the next 10, 12, 15, 20 days, I would spend in my walks, in my drives, putting up a plot to answer these 10 questions through a story. When I was writing this story, which is located in 100 years from now ahead of us, in one of the 120 moons that Jupiter has, called Europa, which has a little bit of oxygen, so mankind can go there. That actually got triggered by, I went to watch the premiere show of Avatar, and I said, if they can already put a movie based on an imaginary location, then I can put a story based on that. So that's where it came from, really. It was just that one night it clicked. I had the plot ready, but I couldn't find where to place it, whether in South Africa or Europe. So I said, let's go to Europa.
So really, I thought it was very complicated when I started off, that you might have thought, okay, if I have to open a shop in unknown territory, how do I do it? But then you explained that it wasn't that complicated. But it's a lovely read. You all should read it. It's Setting Up a Shop in Jupiter Moon Europa. I loved it. And so I wanted to ask you this, like, we just had Malini Goyal, who had written a book on unboxing Bangalore. And she said she has 25 years of experience, and she still had that jitters, like imposter syndrome, that, can I write this book? This is your first book. It's written so well. Did you have any of those jitters?
Never. None. Because I was writing stories. I was busy writing plots. I was like being a Salim Javed there. So, in fact, I had to curtail some stuff because stories were getting longer. I had to cut paragraphs and edit portions and say, okay, you're telling a tale and don't go overboard, man. It's, so no, fortunately no. Especially the style that you've chosen, things flow, and unless things are flowing, then the reader is also not going to find the flow while reading it. if it's not flowing when you're writing it. If you got writer's block while writing it, then the reader's going to have the reader's block, where he has to go back, read the paragraph again, samajh nahi aaya. So,
Absolutely.
didn't find any of those things, which is why I'm looking forward to writing one more soon, whenever I find the time now. So.
We're really looking forward to it. You must do it in our quorum before you go anywhere else. As I said, we are readers and we love these kind of books. What was the most fun writing? I had a lot of fun reading a few of the books. A few of the stories. As I said, the Jupiter Moon, I really like the Shamsuddin story about how he wants to sell, ready to cook food into a new market. And I also love the brand building story. And the one that I really loved and which is so important for all of us, how to create a company culture that we absolutely love. What was the story that you had most fun writing?
I loved most of them. I mean, every one of them. That's why I wrote them. But yeah, since you mentioned about the company culture or work culture, I mean, that's something that's most people are confused about. You walk into any company and you ask, okay, what's your work culture like? Define that in one word. And words were like, they're value-based words. We are friendly, we are nice, we look after the society, we pay our taxes, those kinds of things. Those are values, those are not work culture. That's not work culture. Work culture's got to be defined by the situation that you're in the industry that you're in. Today, if you're a small company, probably setting up shop in a new industry, experimentation could be a work culture word for you. Tomorrow, when you become a large company, probably collaboration could be a work culture word for you. But friendly, nice, those kinds of things are not work culture. Those are values our mothers taught us. You have to have them in any company, any situation. Work culture words are things that take you, if done properly by everybody, to the goal that your organization has. And a lot of us don't create those work culture words. So that's that story about. I really liked writing that one. Because I'd just been to 3 organizations and I asked this question, and I actually took a shot of those words, and those words are mentioned in that story, what people, verbatim, 10 people sitting in a boardroom told me as to what is the work culture. I said, this is not work culture, these are your values. What's your work culture?
It's a very good point about being agile, also about your work culture, that you might be needing to be collaborative today, but tomorrow you might be needing something else. So we'll open the floor for questions, the audience questions. We have 10 minutes. Dhruti, you have a question.
Hi everyone, this is Dhruti, and I've been proud enough to work at Harit's team at Vodafone as well. And of course, Ira, thank you. You've been a great friend and a great moderator today. But my question is to you, Harit. I want to ask you, what is really the role of self-conviction in being able to, thrive and not just survive? And when you manage change, what's the role really that self-conviction plays in all of this?
100%. You've got to be an optimist. You've got to believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today and today is better than yesterday. And unless you believe that, it's not going to happen. If you're a doubter, if you're a pessimist, or not an optimist, there is no way that you can, think change. You have to be, first of all, if you're not an optimist, please become an optimist. Find ways of becoming one.
What are your ways, if you can tell a few?
Just compare yourself with the past. Is your life better today or not? I mean, we keep complaining, traffic bahut ho gaya, it's very cold, pollution is high. Is your life better or not in this turmoil? It is. I don't know how many of you have read this book called Factfulness. It gives you data. By data, it tells you that this is the best time for a human being to be born in whole of human history. And tomorrow will be even better. With data, it tells you that.
Hello, Mr. Nagpal. My name is Amog. I work with a startup called Grow. I wanted you to touch upon the topic sense of urgency. How would you go about sensitizing someone and to act upon with a sense of urgency without really being a jerk?
I think he has to believe it. Instead of you telling me it's important and it's urgent, it needs to be done tonight, this has to be over by tomorrow, you need to tell me why. Why is it urgent? And why are 11 things urgent? Very often, you yourself have to prioritize first and say, okay, I've got 11 things. What we do is we pass on, this is urgent, this is urgent, this is urgent, this is urgent, this is also urgent. Without prioritizing, okay, this is super urgent. Once you've done that, do this. Once you've done that, do this. In fact, my belief, frankly, I've learned from this. I used to be passing on everything as urgent to everybody, and then I realized when the things came back to me, where I was sleeping and this person had not slept the night, I would take 2 days to act on it. So then I've created a mantra for myself also, which is in the morning decide, okay, these are 11 things I've got to do, break them into A, B, and C. A, attempt first, and don't even go to B till you finish the A. Then attempt the B's, and if you have some time left after doing the B's, don't even start the C's. Somebody will take care of them, or the environment will. The problem is that we end up forcing the C's also onto people as urgent. So don't, before pushing the sense of urgency on a matter to somebody, ask yourself the question whether it is really that urgent. Most of the time you'll find the answer, no, this is urgent but this is not. And you'll solve the problem by yourself.
I really like when you said then let the environment take care of itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, it's no more a problem, right? Yeah. Do we have one more question that we can take? Oh, yeah, over there.
Hi, I'm Shruti from Manipal Institute of Communication. So I really liked, I'm definitely going to read the story about the culture, but I want to know from you. Sometimes when you're entering a team, it's a new team, so you have that flexibility, or maybe it's a clean slate, and you can start from the beginning. But what if you're a leader and you realize that the culture is, stagnated, and you want to really restart, and you don't have the option of, being a clean slate? So your advice for a leader like that?
So almost every story that you'll see is exactly the same, where the person's stepping into a new problem, into a situation which is full of problems. So very rarely do you get a clean slate. Something has happened before that, which is why you were called in. So you wouldn't have been called in, you wouldn't have been required. Treat that as an opportunity. It is never a threat. What appears as a threat is actually an opportunity. So if you are an optimist, read the stories, you will realize every place the person has walked into a shit house, really. And then you catapulted the situation into an advantage. So it's all here. It's between your 2 ears that happens.
Thank you, sir. I just want to also mention that the 2 times you mentioned about being an optimist. I am an optimist, and I've been recently told that it's better to be a pessimist because they are the only ones who survive.
Don't listen to them. Don't listen to anybody who tells you
They're
that.
the only ones who survive. This book is about how to thrive.
Yeah, good one.
Absolutely.
Good one. Thank you.
So,
Thank you so much.
Amazing book. Please get a hold of it. I read it in 3 hours tops. So if you have a reading speed like I do, or if you have a normal reading speed, you'll read it in 2 hours. And they're really good questions that actually will help you, when you answer them, as Harit says, without a but. If you answer them, then you get to a point where you will get answers to your questions as well. I really loved reading from all across industries like bamboo, selling bamboo, to going to air conditioning, different parts of the world and different industries. It's a really lovely book, but you must get one for your bosses too, as I said, to your CEOs as well. It will really, really help you. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me over. Thank you.